The moment I saw that photograph, my heart nearly stopped. I was just scrolling through my usual neighborhood group, one of those online moms communities, when a single snapshot nearly upended the life I thought I had. There, half obscured by rain and glare, was the unmistakable slope of my husband, young Sue's shoulders, the speckled 8 spots on his hand, the silver watch I'd given him for our 30th anniversary. The post said a middle-aged man in a grey jacket was standing close, too close, with a young woman sharing an umbrella under the fluorescent lights of the all-night convenience store. All my quiet plans for growing old had shattered in one breath, and I heard the word divorce slip cold and bitter between my lips, as if it had been waiting there for years. I am 66. I have kept a single black and white photo tucked in the back of my drawer for shadows of almost 4 decades, the last keepsake from my first love, Jungwoo. That photo has always been like a thin bookmark, pressed inside all the ordinary pages of my life. Jungwoo and I were bound first by poverty and then parted by it. Instead, I married young Soo, who was steady and careful and never promised what he could not give. Together, we raised 2 children and cared for my mother through years of illness. Time crept along in meal preparations, pillboxes, calendars, and the ordinary routines that make up a life. But nothing remains ordinary for long. My mother's funeral had barely ended before the old wounds in my family reopened. My older sister, Jong-hee, and my younger brother, Sung-ho, began bickering over the fate of our childhood home, their messages growing sharp and jagged in our family group chat. Suddenly, the business of inheritance was all anyone could talk about. Documents, signatures, old grudges rising, until even reaching out felt like cutting myself on barbed wire. Young Soo kept silent while I tried not to choose sides, and when he finally suggested that perhaps I could give up a portion of my claim, I heard something thin and splintering inside me. I could not agree, but I couldn't protest either. A small hairline crack formed quietly in my heart. Around this time, fate played an old card. One quiet afternoon, near a campus library cafe, I ran into Jungwoo, my first love. To meet a lost flame at this late age felt surreal. His hair was mostly white now, but his smile still carried the scent of old, happy days. As we sipped tea, exchanging news and tracing the years we had weathered apart, my old bookmark rustled awake. I told myself I had been living well, but the words felt lighter than ever, like empty shells in my mouth. And then, as if to test how much I could take, the next blow fell. One evening, my daughter-in-law Seo-hyun and I received the same anonymous message. Another post in the mums community. This time, a blurry photo showed a grey-jacketed man strolling close beside a young woman, holding a leather bag and an umbrella, with the neighborhood signs, even the wristwatch, unmistakably matching Young Soo's. Lately, there had been inexplicable office apartment fees, withdrawing from Young Soo's account, and odd little purchases from an unfamiliar neighborhood. The kinds of suspicions I used to dismiss as impossible had begun to sprout roots in my mind. It was raining on the day I finally followed Young Soo. He got off at the riverfront station and vanished into an alleyway. There, standing before the mirrored doors of a modest office-tel, I saw my own reflection, hard, tight, not quite myself. I waited, heart thudding like a sandbag in my chest. And when someone finally let me slip inside, the stale, overheated air of the corridor hit me, the scent of musty quilted vests and slightly medicinal air, the echo of footsteps up worn stairs. I soldiered on, hand trembling on the railing. But when I reached the door, my courage sputtered. I turned away, went home, and tried to breathe through the ache of all I could not unsee. Days later, with my nerves chipping away, I made an appointment at a law office and started sifting through property documents, old statements, my own modest savings. The phrase late life divorce hovered over my computer screen. Typed, deleted, typed again. My siblings' accusatory texts kept coming, bruising my peace, while young Sue dragged himself home and wordlessly watched TV beside me. Even the ordinary air in our house felt colder, foreign, as though these rooms belonged to someone else. Then a second pose appeared in the online moms group. A new snapshot, the same grey-jacketed man close to the same young woman, huddled under a plastic convenience store, awning in the rain. In this photo, the woman was masked and looking down, the black umbrella tilted to shield her, and the curve of another shoulder blurred behind them. Wild guesses began to fill the comments. I remembered young Sue's new black umbrella from just that morning, and a wave of nausea tightened through my head. As somewhere in all this confusion, I made up my mind. If I didn't finally gather my life together, no one else would do it for me. The inheritance battle with my siblings had turned cruel, and in quiet moments I consoled myself with memories of my mother's gentle smile and the rubbery scent of our family home. In the kitchen, even dishes began to sound brittle. One evening, as I tidied my desk, my fingers brushed a crumpled receipt hidden among the papers. Printed on it was the name of a dementia support center, and stamped over it, counseling records. There were a few short, cryptic notes in what looked like young Sue's handwriting. Temporary housing, application for guardianship to be considered. I stood there, frozen, a spark of confusion flaring amidst the embers of my anger and suspicion. At that moment, I truly felt what it was to stare over the edge of a cliff. The online rumors and blurry evidence felt as if they were magnifying all the cracks in my marriage. But that single slip of paper, Dementia Support Center, pointed the lens elsewhere. I had the uneasy sense that this thin receipt might change everything, that perhaps there was a truth I had not even considered. The next morning, I took the address from the receipt and went to the center. It was newly built, tucked into one side of the local government complex, filled with the scent of herbal tea and soft music drifting through the waiting room. Posters lined the walls. Elder abuse prevention. How to apply for adult guardianship. I found myself unable to speak, taking a brochure and sitting down. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed someone familiar, Jongwoo, my first love, now volunteering at the center. For a brief moment, relief and trepidation warred within me. Following Jongwoo, I browsed the open pamphlets and case files. One caught my attention, a report about a middle-aged man arranging temporary housing for an elderly patient. Social worker Mi Jung's name was listed, and in the Guardian's column, there it was, Young Soo. Suddenly, everything rearranged itself in my mind. I realized the woman in the photographs wasn't what I'd feared. The online camera flash, so eager to catch wrongdoing, had overlooked someone truly in need, off-screen. The person standing close under the awning wasn't a young mistress, but a trembling elderly man. Young Sue's shadowed umbrella was not hiding a secret, but offering shelter to the vulnerable. The missing pieces rushed into focus. The strange smell from that rainy office tell, visit. The old quilted vest, the pill bottles with unfamiliar drugs. These belonged to Mr. Park, a retired tailor from Young Sue's old job, whose stories I had once half listened to over holiday dinners. As it turned out, Mr. Park had developed dementia and fallen into a bitter inheritance struggle of his own. With nowhere to go, he needed temporary protection. The rumors about his family's conflict had swirled in our neighborhood, but I had ignored them. Without saying a word, Young-soo had helped, shuttling between hospital, center, and a safe, rented room. The incriminating purchases and withdrawals were simply the cost of caregiving. Snacks, household goods, extra cleaning. The photos, bossed around the internet and twisted into gossip, were nothing more than evidence of his kindness. For the first time, I saw where my husband's shoulders truly pointed, whose warmth he was protecting. The little details, a rent withdrawal here, a charge for groceries there, went from being evidence of betrayal to silent proof of quiet goodness. The black umbrella didn't mask shame, but offered fragile dignity. I sat motionless at the center, eyes closed, letting all that I'd misunderstood wash over me. When I got home that evening, I looked in the mirror and tried, for the first time, to be kind to myself. I saw how quickly I'd reached for jealousy, how tightly I had gripped suspicion without daring to ask. That night, I called my sister and brother, words tentative, feelings raw, and we shared at least a little peace, looking at our mother's photograph and wondering together what she might have wished for her children. When Young-soo returned home, weary from the day, I quietly placed the Dementia Support Center pamphlet on the table. We didn't add more words. Everything necessary rested on the thin pages between us. Slowly, things began to mend. I cancelled the divorce consultation and made time to visit both my siblings, insisting on a fair, clear look at our shared inheritance rather than let old quarrels fester. There were still harsh words and tears. Long-standing resentment takes time to fade, but I clung fiercely to the idea that I would not let the worst version of ourselves define us. One afternoon, my sister, Jong-hee, held my hand tight. Her warmth lingered long after. Eventually, we crafted a truce, not perfect, but honest enough to let us move forward. With Young-soo, too, the quiet between us grew less brittle. I gave myself permission to write down the questions I had never found the courage to ask. Gradually, piece by piece, I understood. The old debts Young-soo owed Mr. Park, the unspoken gratitude for years of friendship, small traditions of repayment, the decision to help him when no one else would. Even as Young-soo remained gruff and reserved, someday he handed me a warm towel after dinner, and in that simple gesture, I saw more apology and affection than any words could provide. One final reflection. Life is more fragile than we care to admit, sometimes rocked by just a rumor or a single photograph. But what I've learned is simple. Thin scraps of evidence rarely capture the full truth. The lens of suspicion is often blind to quiet acts of care. I judged too quickly, donned the heavy robes of anger and righteousness without knowing how much they would weigh my heart down. As for Jong-woo and the echo of first love, seeing him again lent bittersweet shape to my uncertainty. I made sure to thank him for his wordless comfort. The pamphlet in my hand, the generosity of an old friend at the moment I most needed clarity. I pressed that black and white photo of us back into my drawer, not to close those pages, but to remind myself there are many stories left to live. still unfolding. Now, evenings pass to the gentle noise of young Sue's snoring in the next room, and I find, at last, a rhythm in my breathing again. I have learned to step back from the edge before leaping to judgment, and I wish to leave my children the gift of honesty, not hate. The memory of Mr. Park's trembling hands and the slow healing of my own fractured family have taught me humility. I made peace with my husband, and not perfectly, with my siblings as well. So I offer this to anyone listening. Before you judge by shadows or rumor, remember my mistake. When suspicion clouds your heart, what do you take the time to seek out first? The evidence of wrongdoing, or the possibility of kindness waiting just beyond the frame?